at the beginning though, like it doesn't sound like you were thinking about it as like this incredible career opportunity to go be an entrepreneur and go raise a bunch of VC funding. And of course you have done those things and you've been incredibly successful with a lot of this process. But did you view Exponent as a business, as a passion project, something in between when you were just getting started?
So yeah, when I was getting started, it was truly just like a side thing. I thought I was just going to be a coach, and like make some side income that way. And it was something that I like to do. It wasn't until I talked to my co-founder about it, and he was like, "Oh, you can make this into like a course, and like this could be like kind of a cool thing." And I was like, "Oh, that's a good point. Like I could make it into something a little bit more." And so then the story of Exponent from there is really like small step functions of just slowly addressing user pain points and creating a little bit more value. And so the first thing we did was like I made a PDF document with like 3 interview question and answers, and I sold it for like $5 to people. And I just sent them a PDF. It was like the jankiest thing I've ever done. Like I was like, Venmo me $5 and I'll send you this PDF. And like they didn't even know if I was going to send the PDF or not. But that was like what I did first, because I was like, oh, whatever, I'll just make some like side incomes to see if this works. And then I put the PDF on the website, and then I paywalled the website. You know, we made a website and things like that. And then it started to like get more and more traction, similar to those blog posts that I posted earlier. It was like, okay, people are still into this. People are still wanting more and more and more. Let me create more and more of this. And so then that was like from 2018 to 2020, which I was actually at GSB at that time. So I was like I had started the company before GSB. During GSB, I was learning all about business stuff. And I was like, well, maybe I could like grow this a little bit more. Like maybe I could follow some of these tips and things like that. And so then slowly we added more features, slowly we added more things. And then before you knew it, it was kind of this bigger company, basically. It was this like bigger thing that like actually addressed pain points. And, you know, my role had shifted from being a coach to being an entrepreneur. And there was some grief about that, to be honest, because I really liked coaching. I really liked helping people. I really liked being on the phone with people and supporting them in their career. But it was a necessary transition to kind of service more people and help a broader audience.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do have to like scale these things in order to like turn it into a business that can take you to the scale and the sort of entrepreneurial dreams that I imagine you also had. And so you've come a tremendous way since $5 PDFs and Venmo and things like that. And so walk us through some of the key inflection points, the history of growing Exponent. And then I want to hear a little bit more about some of the lessons that you learned as an entrepreneur and how that early career working very, very hard as a product manager at Google like played into that. But let's start with some of those inflection points. Like what were the milestones between $5 PDF and today?
Yeah. So I think there were 4 key inflection points for the history of my company. One was we started posting YouTube videos. So you know we had grown this little website into a little course, but then we were like, how do we really address the pain point of an interview? Like, how do you if someone's freaking out about an interview, what can you do? Well, the best thing you can do is show them exactly what it's going to look like, right? And video is just a better format for that, and YouTube is a good format for that. So we started posting these live mock interview videos. Did really well. People really liked them. And so we started posting more and more of them. And then we kind of became the industry leader for tech interview prep very quickly, because no one else was posting these videos. We were getting smart people to answer these interview questions and show how they actually go about answering them. And then all of a sudden we saw just a lot of traction, a lot of interest in this type of content, simultaneously opening up a huge marketing channel for us, because YouTube is the second biggest search engine on the web behind Google search itself. And so all of a sudden, a lot of people were finding our content and kind of casually discovering our content. And then we use those videos behind our paywall. We would add more videos and put them behind our paywall and kind of created a video course out of it. So that was very effective. The second inflection point was expanding beyond PM. We then moved into software engineering and data science and other verticals, and that was a big inflection point for us. I would say the third inflection point was expanding to the university market. So we started to we started to create contracts with universities, Stanford being the first one actually, where we would have partnerships where all the students get access to Exponent as a part of this university tuition. Those were really impactful, because then we started to open up a bunch of new customers who knew about us because people all of a sudden would talk about us and share us in university systems. But then also universities themselves would be able to, we're kind of like a stable partner for us because consumer, the B2C market, can be up and down, but the B2B, B2U market is more stable ARR. And then lastly was acquiring companies. And so we then stepped into kind of being able to buy up some other companies in the space. Pramp was a big one. Interview Cake is another one, specifically in the software engineering interview prep space, where we're able to kind of expand our offerings by kind of combining multiple companies, creating synergies, and creating a little bit more robust interview prep package because some people bounce around to these different roles. So those are some of the key inflection points for my journey with Exponent.
Yeah. Well, as a former banker, I'm sure you know that I have to ask about the M&A side of things. And so for the acquisitions you did of buying, Pramp and Interview Cake, like you said, what was the strategic thinking around the M&A that you did? And did you ever work with any bankers on these deals?
We do talk to bankers, but these scale for what we were dealing with was too small for it to involve a banker, for it to be meaningful to work with a banker. These often were companies either in distress or maybe the founder had stepped back and didn't want to work in the business anymore, or maybe they were VC backed. The team had gotten acqui-hired already, but the assets of the company were still just lying around and available and no one was using them. And so So that made it affordable for us in a lot of ways. But we really also found a way, which was that we had this all access membership that we could take companies with traffic, with profit, and with content, and we could make them more profitable. We were pretty confident that we could do that. And so, we didn't work with bankers, but we would work directly founder on founder, which I think was very effective, kind of carving out a structure in a deal. It often does involve some revenue share or some tie in to the success of the joint venture. And honestly, usually founders are pretty excited about it. And it was just as much selling them on us as it was them selling their company to us as well. But it's been very accretive for our business, very valuable for the business and for the users too. Yeah,
that's very cool. And I definitely want to hear more about some of those strategic ideas behind these at some point. But one of the things that stands out a ton is the degree of like quantitative and financial analysis. It sounds like you probably have to do a semi-distressed deal or a deal without a team. Like these are pretty hairy deals that as a private equity investor, a lot of times I would have shied away from just because like it's scary. There's a lot of executional risk and there's a lot of financial projection risk and things like that. And so I'm curious how you, as someone with a PM background in CS, obviously extraordinarily intelligent, but like how did you develop the skill set needed to analyze this from a financial and business perspective?
Honestly, I did not know what I was doing the first time around, and I had no formal training in it, and I did not pay attention enough in my GSB classes to be competent at that. So a lot of it was kind of honestly just calling a lot of friends, like asking them, like friends who are like you, who are in banking or in finance, and like, what should I look for? Is this a bad idea? And honestly, a lot of people told me like, these are not businesses. These are dying assets that are not really valuable. Like, don't buy this business. And I think what I realized is that we're operating in a smaller sector of the market. And so no private equity company is going to go buy these companies. So the sellers don't really have alternatives. But I have one unique insight into this market. I really know intimately how it is to build these kinds of businesses. And two, you can kind of look at the businesses also from a content perspective, like how valuable is this content? Look at it just basically the assets, and are the assets valuable? So often we don't buy businesses purely. We rarely buy businesses for the EBITDA of the business. We don't really care that much about that. We buy it for the potential that it has to be accretive to our company and what that will look like exactly. And so the key insight that I had is like, one, they don't have alternatives, and two, I'm willing to take risks on these because I know how to evaluate content and I know how to evaluate businesses like these. Less so that I know how to do financial analysis, sophisticated financial analysis, because a lot of these businesses weren't super financially viable, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, and
They're
that's
not
where I'd say
profitable. And
the science of banking runs into the art of entrepreneurship and like running a business, where you really can't expect to always be able to pin down the why with numbers. And so, in the same way that like we were talking earlier about some of the like the positive externalities of many of the things that you do in life, and like business school is a great example of that for me, where it's like I couldn't quantify whether it was going to be a good idea. I just had a sense that it was, and so you have to set aside the financial models to some extent, and then just make a good call, like a good judgment call of like, is this going to be good? And you specifically were equipped to do that in these cases because like you built content yourself and you understood like how this game worked in the process. And so you in many ways were probably actually more equipped than an investment banker to accurately value the assets of the business. And so
yeah,
this is
that's a great way to
fascinating.
put it.
This is fascinating. And, I say that with some degree of humility as a banker. Like I always thought that, the bankers were the smartest people in the room, but obviously that's not always true. And so what are some of the other lessons that you've learned as an executive? Like you've learned how to do M&A, you've learned how to run a business of substantial scale. And so what were some of the key things that you feel like you've learned that you didn't get at Google, that you didn't get at Stanford, that you didn't get at Princeton? Like what was the learning?
I think honestly, having difficult conversations was a big learning. I mean, you technically learn that in business school, but like founding a company is not easy. Like having a co-founder that also has preferences and desires, having teammates that maybe like you don't agree with or you have challenges with, and things like that. I think it is not. I would honestly say the people part of it was so fundamental. Like not even internally, like also like when you're partnering with companies and deals fall through. M&A, I mean, I'm sure like fundamentally, especially at this scale we're operating, was very emotional for a lot of the people that we were talking to. Like to leave a business behind, and sometimes you say something like, well, your business is not that valuable, and then all of a sudden it comes to their ego. It's like, well, I'm not. And how do you navigate those kind of people problems and find partnerships with companies? Fundamentally, Exponent was also a very partnership forward company. Like we partner with a lot of subject matter experts. We partner with a lot of organizations like Udacity and things like that. And so I would say, one of the biggest learnings I've learned over the years is like how to navigate human conversations where there's ego and emotion at stake. And if I had to summarize it into one learning, it's just really being good at listening. Like really good at listening. And I think anyone who's listening to this thinks they're probably thinking in their head like, oh, I'm good at listening. You're not good at listening if you think you're good at listening. Like it's like a deep lifelong practice to like really listen, and that I'm still on. So I think that has been really valuable for me. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to return there because I get the sense we're going to shift the conversation a little bit here to some of the educational and teaching things you've done, including teaching communications at Stanford and listening to some extent. And so let's put a pin in that one because that's a topic I'm very fascinated by. But there's two other things from this kind of era at Exponent that I just really have to dig into. The first is tell me a little bit about the decision to go to business school. Like that's a bit of a strange thing almost. If you have this business that's starting to show some green shoots, like why did you step away and go to business school?
I feel like I'm like continually disappointing the audience or something, but there was like, I mean this jokingly, but basically like there was not that much thought behind that. Like it was basically, I was lonely. I did this 2-year road trip and I didn't know where to go and I needed community. To be honest, business school was not something I was super excited about at the time. I had applied to the deferred admission program. So I had been admitted since I was in college. I did the road trip, and GSB was not super happy because you're supposed to be working the whole time before you go to GSB. You're not allowed to like take time off. And then they said they got mad at me about it, and I begged them if they could let me go. And then they were like, yeah, it's okay. You can come, even though you didn't do the thing that we told you, even though you did the thing that we said would not let you come to us later. So I honestly, at the time, I didn't know if I was still admitted or not, but I asked them because I really kind of wanted stability and structure and orientation and a goal after being soul searching for 2 years. It was honestly just like, I just needed community at the time. So that was the main reason I went. I went thinking that I was going to drop out after a quarter because I was like, I just want to go start this business. I just need to get back on my feet. And then I ended up graduating with an MBA. So
That's
yeah,
funny. Okay. I love that trajectory
yeah,
from they said, don't go quit your job. You went and quit your job. You begged them to come anyways. And then you were like, oh, and by the way, once they do, I'm still going to quit. So I'm glad
yeah,
that it worked out in the
yeah.
end. But like maybe a more useful question than to ask is how would you advise someone who's deciding whether or not to like make that decision? Because I mentioned earlier, like it's not a clear cut financial decision about whether to go to business school, but a lot of the students I coach who are going to investment bank and go to private equity, they think in numbers and cents. How do you advise someone and whether or not that's the right next step of their career?
Yeah, I really like what you said earlier, which is it requires a different frame of reference to be able to make this decision. Similar to like when you get married, if you get married, like that's not a financial decision. Like, or
Mostly.
for most people, it's not a financial decision. Yeah, yeah. But when I was really unsure about it, and I was like, okay, is this good for my career? And I decided actually very conclusively that this would not be good for my career. I was like, this is
Violence.
actually a lot of people who want to go to business school want to become product managers. Like, why would I do
Uh-huh.
that if I already was a product manager?
Uh-huh.
In addition, like this is like a huge amount of money, and so basically I calculated the financial and career implications, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
this is not worth it.
Uh-huh.
I'm so grateful that I did it though, and I think these type of decisions are really like intuitive gut-based decisions still, but also like who do you want to be, and like what kind of life do you want to live, and they kind of
Uh-huh.
pop up to like who are you and how do you make decisions and what moments in your life are you really happy. And the thing that really persuaded me, which I think is up to it may or may not be relevant to your audience, is that I love education. Like I don't know how to say it more strongly, like without swearing, but I really, really love education. Like it's so fulfilling, so fun to me to be in a classroom, to learn, to be around people who are
Uh-huh.
learning, to be in an ecosystem where the orientation is around
Uh-huh.
growth and exploration. And so just the privilege of being in a university system for whatever amount of time that I thought it was going to be, I was really stoked for it because I really like learning and I like teaching and I like all this kind of stuff. And so um, that was what persuaded me, honestly, was like, oh, I really want community and I like this learning. I like this university system. Let me like give it a go. And so
Yeah.
that may or may not be the reason for folks watching, but that was the reason that persuaded me at least.
That's great. Yeah, and the learning is very intense and very fun. Just to like be around people who are focused on that, because sometimes in a lot of normal like corporate 9 to 5 jobs, people don't really care about the learning. They care about earning a paycheck and collecting that, and stagnation is very possible. But you're right that the great thing about learning and learning focused organizations like Exponent and Wall Street Mastermind is that everyone is explicitly trying to make themselves better every single day, and that's just so fun to me, so invigorating to me. And it's also led you to a
Yeah.
lot of success. And so one thing I've just got to ask about is tell me about the Forbes 30 under 30. Like that's an incredibly impressive accomplishment. And I've got to hear how it happened.
Thanks. Yeah, I always thought it was so shiny when I was in college and I learned about it. And then turns out like you basically just apply. So it's not like as I don't know, whatever as it sounds. But yeah, it was cool. It was really cool to get it. I remember the way I celebrated with my co-founder because my co-founder and I got it together.
Uh-huh.
We decided we had to eat 30 dumplings in under 30 minutes total. So that was our celebration, which was not the physically most exciting way to feel after doing that, but it was fun to have accomplished it. So yeah,
That's funny.
it was really cool. It was cool to be recognized, and yeah, I'm grateful that like they thought our work was interesting and valuable enough to be recognized by them too.
That's very funny. And I haven't heard about the secret initiation ceremony that happens after you get the award. So congratulations on the dumpling contest as well.